Okay guys, how's it going? So in this video I'm actually going to be either replacing or repairing my Mode Valve Actuator, sometimes known as the Direction Actuator, the Vent Control Actuator. There's a couple of different names for it, but General Motors refers it to as a Mode Valve Actuator. And what it is this knob here controls the Mode Valve Actuator. So there's a door that's attached to basically a solenoid that changes direction. It actually spins either clockwise or counterclockwise based on where you have your setting at. So defrost, you got your floor, and then vent is right there. So mine is actually bad, and what happens is it gets stuck between defrost, floor, and it won't go any further. Now I'll be driving down the road and I'll have it in auto, and suddenly I'll hear a tap 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 or a click or whatever, which indicates to me that it's getting hung up somewhere. So it basically stays in defrost or floor mode. Now on the rare occasion that it actually does go into vent mode, then it will get stuck when it's starting to go back to defrost. So what I do is, because I actually need the defrost on foggy mornings or in the wintertime, is I've been just keeping it between floor and defrost, and I don't let it move any further. So I'm actually going to get the actuator out and see if it can be repaired. Maybe it just needs to be oiled. Maybe something's loose under there. I don't know yet, but that's what I'm going to find out. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get your passenger seat all the way back as far as it'll go. So push it all the way back, and that will allow you room to get to the kick panel, or sometimes known as the underside dash panel plate here. There is a plastic plate under here with 3 retaining pins. There's the first one, the second one, and the third one, and these push pins need to come out so that this panel will fall. Okay, so getting these pins out is actually pretty easy. You could use a pair of pliers and pull on it, but essentially you've got a center pin here that puts pressure on an outer pin that holds this in place. So what you want to do is you want to get a small flat blade screwdriver. I don't really feel like messing these up, so I'm going to use a screwdriver method. And there's a little notch here on both sides, and you just basically lift on it until it's gone. I mean, it's literally that easy, and you do the same thing for all of them. There's 3 in total. So here's a closer look at the actual pin, and you can see how it's actually designed. You got this center pin right here, and that puts pressure on the outside of the pin to keep it from being pulled out. It just expands it. So when you lift up on the center pin, it just releases that tension and allows this bottom portion here to be squeezed and then pulled out. It's really not that complicated. Alright, so when you release the 3 push pins, you'll notice the entire panel comes down, and you can actually just twist this, and that will allow you to remove the dome light or interior lamp, and you just want to put that aside. Now my car will automatically shut these off after, I think it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But since I have my door open, that's going to stay on. Optionally, you could just pull the bulb, but I'm not really worried about it. It's just kind of just sitting there. So now that is the lower panel is off, we can move that to the side. We're going to get the fuse panel off, or fuse cover, and that's pretty easy to get off. There, simple as that. So now that's off. And what that's going to allow us to get access to is this plate right here. And this protective plate comes off actually fairly easy. Basically, you just take the whole thing and you just kind of pull down on it, and that's it. So this is a trim piece. It comes off really easy. We'll set that aside. The next thing that we need to do is we need to get this door out of the way. So basically just open your compartment door, and this right here is the stop that prevents the door from basically just falling when you open it. And what you do is you've got 2, I'll try to get a side shot here, you've got 2 separators here, and it looks like, let's see if I can get focused in, one of them is independent of the other. And basically what you do is you take you lift your door up slightly, you push in with your thumb away from you, and then that will allow the door to fall. You can see how it's held in there. This is the stop for it. This basically prevents it from falling down, and then you've got you know, your locking right here, which controls how fast the actual glove compartment, as it's sometimes called, falls. You got this little gear here. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull this trim piece here back slightly. You don't need to bring it all the way out. You just need to be able to get access to remove this side trim panel here. So the easiest way, I've done videos of this before, but the easiest way is to just grab it from the corner down here like this and just pull out. You can see how easy that comes out. Now be aware, this piece right here is probably going to pop out on you, but I'm not bringing it out all the way. So just enough to be able to basically unlatch it from the inside here. And then what you do, you take this bottom portion here and you just pull out on it. Let's see if I can do this as carefully as possible. There we go. All right. So there's 4 actually in total, but once you've got this panel off, just be careful getting it off. Mine just kind of popped off. All right, so the screws that we're trying to get to are these 4 Phillips head screws. So we're going to get to these 4 Phillips screws here, and we should start lowering this unit. Okay, so I'm down to 1 screw here, right there, and I want to make sure that I make it clear you're going to want to hold this while you're getting the last screw out. The reason is because it's going to put a lot of strain on that 1 screw, and it might actually crack this plastic, because as you're unscrewing the last one, all of the weight from the compartment is going to start wanting to come down. So just make sure that you're holding it with one hand and unscrewing it with the other. You know, I've just got my arm basically right here at this point, so that it all doesn't just fall at once, and it doesn't put too much strain on that 1 screw and possibly crack this. Okay, so with the compartment now completely disconnected by screws, what I've done is I've closed the door, and this is free hanging, so you don't want to just let this go. So now that the door is actually closed, I can actually maneuver this back and forth. You basically just take it and you slide it back and forth until the whole thing comes out, and you might even be able to see back there the retaining. There's a set of wires back here, and the only thing that's holding it on right there are those retaining clips. And so I'm actually going to leave those because I don't need to get this entire compartment out, you know, outside of the car or anything. So I'm just going to leave it sitting here. All right, so on the left-hand side here, let's see if I can get focused. On the left-hand side here, you have the Mode Valve Actuator. Okay, this is your Mode Valve Actuator. This basically controls, you know, which direction the air is going to flow out. Your dash, your floor, your defrost. It takes the air and moves it in whatever direction is requested, either automatically or manually by the driver. And then behind it here is the temperature valve actuator. Now, if you have the manual controls, this is the only one you're going to see. There's actually 2 of these. You've got one on the driver's side underneath the steering wheel, and then you have one over here, which is the main one that controls the temperature. So in this automatic type setup, you have 2 of these. So the passenger, this is the passenger one, that's so the passenger can select what temperature. Now be aware the passenger cannot independently select where they want the air to flow, so if you have the air coming out the vents and they want it out the floor, well, there's no way to do that because there's only one actuator. And I think the newer cars actually have that where they can select where they want the air, but the 04 to 08 Grand Prix did not have that feature. It's just one mode actuator, and whether the passenger likes it or not, it's coming out in that direction. So we are interested in this one right here. This is the mode actuator. This is the one that's most likely hung up, stuck, whatever the deal is. But so I'm going to go ahead and get this out. So this is a 5.5 millimeter socket, and that's what's used to remove these. Now you could actually get away with using a 732 socket, but it's going to be a little bit on the loose side. This is actually perfect for this. Okay, I've removed the 2 screws, and I'm going to go ahead and go over some I guess disclaimer here. You are going to be unplugging something that is electricity driven, so it is recommended that you plug your battery from the car. Now I'm just going to leave it at that. I won't be responsible for you shocking yourself or causing a fire, yada yada yada. So do at your own risk. Now that we've got that out of the way, this whole thing should just come right off, and it does. And on the inside here, you can see kind of a cog wheel gear type thing. This rotates left or right, and it looks like it's fine from what I can see, at least. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Yeah, that looks fine. It's not stripped. It's not bad, so that's definitely not the problem. Let's go ahead and take a look at the end here. This also looks fine. It's not stripped, it's not wore down, it doesn't look like there's any damage to it, so I can assume that it's working just fine. Now, I'm going to do something here to test this and see how it's actually working. I'm not going to unplug it yet. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put the car to on, and then I'm going to move the actuator and see if this spindle here actually turns. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I got the fan speed down. I'm going to go ahead and move this to defrost. Okay, it's moving just fine all the way to defrost. Move it to the left. So that would appear to be working just fine. So I verified that this works fine, but it might just need to be oiled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it all apart and get it oiled up. Getting this harness out is actually fairly easy. Get my camera to focus here. There is a little clip right there, a retaining clip. You just take a flat blade screwdriver, push up underneath this clip, and the whole thing should come right out. Alright, so here's the actuator right here. Pretty simple, actually. There's 2 power lines coming in. Yeah, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just open this up and make sure that everything is oiled properly. And because it was working just fine outside, I'm guessing that it's quite possibly just starting to wear, and some oil should help that. It might be too much for it to actually turn that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing open. There are tabs here that you just take a flat blade screwdriver and you just wedge it under there and you kind of push down. So once you've removed or unlinked the tabs, then this should separate. Okay, I've released all 5 of the tabs, so this should just come right off. And this is what it looks like in the inside. It's actually pretty simple. It's either the motor is going in one direction or the motor is going in the other direction. So yeah, pretty simple. So this is something that you could in fact repair. I'm not going to take it all apart, but it's actually repairable. If, let's say, the motor here, this is a DC motor, if this motor here were to fail, you could probably get a replacement motor for maybe $1 or $2. You know, if these gears were to fail, you could actually get one. You could go to a junkyard or a salvage yard and get one that's not working or something or anything like that to be as cheap as possible and actually fix it yourself. So that's what it looks like on the inside. These things here cost about, last I checked, it was right around $25 to $30. So if you're looking to save some money, which I am, and you know, I'm just cheap, that's the way it is. If you're looking to save some money, you can obviously open this up. It's actually very easy to open up and add some grease, inspect it to see if you have any teeth that may have broke off. I don't see any teeth that are gone on any of the gears. So everything there looks good. It's probably just needs to be greased up a little bit. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Alright, so upon further inspection, I actually noticed that all of the grease that is on the inside here actually got bound up and collected right here at this point here, right at the base here, this shaft here that comes out of the motor. It was all gooped up underneath, and there's no reason for that because this shaft here doesn't need to be lubricated because it's not coming in contact with any moving parts. Now, I didn't take it all off. I left some at this top portion right here, right there, just in case, but I highly doubt it needs it. but it was all gooped up in here. So what I did is I just took my screwdriver and I just scooped it out and reapplied it to all of the gears. And so now this should be back to normal. I think that's what happened. So I'm not going to apply any extra grease. I just took the existing grease that was all bound up down here and just reapplied it to the gears, and that should fix the problem. But this was very dry. There was nothing on it whatsoever. All the grease had collected right there. As you can see, I just left that there. And this was dry as well, so I went ahead and reapplied grease. The existing grease, I went ahead and reapplied it to here. So this should be fixed now. But I'm going to go ahead and get it back in my car, and it's actually pretty easy to get this back on. I'm going to get this back together. It just snaps back together. So this is a kind of a cheap way for you to, I mean, even if you're not having problems and you have the time and the patience, you can pull this thing apart and make sure that you're not going to run into the same problem. You got noisy gear, anything else like that, you can actually just do this as a preventative maintenance kind of deal. So I mean, this right here saved me 30 bucks, and really there was nothing wrong with it. It just needed to be re-lubed or re-greased. So now we're going to go ahead and get this back in the car. Okay, so you can probably hear the blower motor back there running. I want to go ahead and change from defrost to dash. Appears to be working just fine. So, go ahead and change back to defrost. Okay, so externally it seems to be working just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plug it back in to the mounting location and then test it again with the car running to make sure the air is moving where it should be. Okay, so the car is running, and I'm going to go ahead hold this in place. Kind of hard to do with the camera in my hand. I'm going to go ahead and hold this in place, and I'm going to turn it over to the dash vents. We'll turn it up here a little bit so I can feel the air. And the air is coming out the dash vents. Turn it all the way up. The air is coming out the dash vents just fine. Let's turn it back to defrost. Yeah, I can feel the motor turning. And the air is now coming out the defrost, so the windshield. Alright, so that's perfect. We just fixed, I presume we fixed, let's go to the floor. Alright, so I can feel it moving. And the air is now coming out the floor. So this is perfect. So this is exactly, put it on auto. I don't know where it's going to move now. It's moving somewhere. That's moving out to the dash. Alright. So, perfect. Alright. So we have fixed the mode actuator. So now what I need to do is I need to just put everything back in the reverse order. And that should complete this job. Alright, 2 screws are back in. So now this is back in where it should be. Okay, so to get this glove box back in, just basically do everything in the reverse order. And I'm going to need 2 hands to do this because I'm going to need to hold the glove box at the same time that I'm actually screwing the 4 screws back in. But make sure you open your glove box again, and you just, this is much easier to get to now, but you just make sure the glove box is completely open so that you have access on the other side to the screws to remount the glove box. So you will need 2 hands for this, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Real quick, I wanted to show you after the glove box is open. To get it back in, you just do the exact same thing as getting it out. You just wiggle it back and forth until it's in place, and you kind of have to move it around a little bit. You'll see the screw holes will be lined up. You'll see it. You just got to fiddle with it until you get it lined up, and then you get your screws back in. Alright, so all 4 screws are back in place. With the glove box open, you just basically line the holes up. I'm gonna have to do this with 2 hands, but just basically line it up and then just tap it in with a little bit of force, and it should lock right back into where it was before. Right, we're locked back in, so now we just take this, push it back together. Literally as easy as that. So that's back together. Now we can go ahead and get the side piece trim here back in. Alright, just as easy as it came out, make sure this hole is facing you or the right side, and you should be able to just snap it right back in place. Simple as that. Now you can actually close the glove compartment. Alright, works just fine. Fuse panel, very easy, goes right back in where it came from. Once I've got it lined up, that is. Alright, fuse panel's back in. One last thing to do before we're done, we need to get the kick panel back up. First thing we got to do there is make sure we've got it facing the proper direction. You want the hole opening, the big opening, to be on the left side, and you want the opening for the actual lamp to be on the right side. I'm going to have to do this with 2 hands, but basically I'm going to attach this here, and then I'm going to lift up on it, line up the holes, and then just take the push pins right here and just literally just push them up back in. Make sure the plunger is all the way in, and it's as easy as that. Alright, a job well done. We've finished up, everything's back where it should be, and everything seems to work just fine. But just to make sure, because I like to be thorough, I'm actually going to start it, and I'm going to go ahead and let you guys hear that it does in fact work just fine. Okay, so I've got the controls set at the dash vents. Air is coming out just fine. I'm actually going to take it off auto and put it all the way on full blast. So we got full air coming out here. I'm not feeling any air anywhere else. So let's go ahead and put it over to defrost or windshield. Alright, so the air is now moving from the dash vents and completely off the dash vents, and now all the air is coming out here and this vent right here. And let's go ahead and switch it to floor. Alright, so you can probably see all that stuff now fluttering around. So that's the floor vent. No air coming out here, no air coming out there. So this is where it gets hung up. Well, we'll put it all the way over. There we go. It works perfect. No problems, no hang-ups, no nothing. So we went ahead and repaired our mode actuator, and if you have any questions, let me know. The whole process took about 20 minutes to get that done. If you need to replace yours, obviously you just do the same thing, except you just put the new one in when you get the old one out. If you want to repair it, I've included the instructions on how to do so. As long as the motor itself isn't burned up or you haven't lost any teeth on the gears, you should be just fine. So yeah, I've successfully completed the job, and if you have any questions, let me know. Take care, guys.